going on, everyone? Going to Take the History. Coming to you live. This is kind of a spur of the moment type live video. I kind of want to do something a little bit different. A little bit of some almost borderline like behind the scenes type video where I've always, when I've dove in, it's like, what is it like to actually go in and make these videos? A lot of times we take and we see the finished product without fully knowing what all went into creating that product. So here's a little bit of a little snapshot into kind of what goes into creating these videos. So I see we have somebody here. Hello, good evening, happy Saturday. So if you're wondering what I'm doing, I've actually been to this cemetery, I think this is my third time coming here. And first couple times I came here, I kind of just drove through because I was trying to kind of get a feel for it. I've been in this general area before, and so I knew a little bit about kind of where the cemetery was at, but I didn't really know a whole lot about where the landscape of the cemetery. And I'm here trying to find a famous final resting place. So back in December, a very iconic NFL player, an NFL announcer, and an NFL activist passed away here just outside of Orlando, Florida, at the age of 90. His name was Gary Kniffel, and he's laid to rest somewheres in the cemetery. So once I found out of his passing, I wanted to come pay my respects. And one of the downsides is that when someone passes away, typically most web services such as like Find a Grave, even if they have access to the grave locations, they don't share any of those details, which is good, for 3 months, until 3 months after the person has passed away. So he's coming up on being deceased, 3 months coming up here in about 2 weeks. So if there is any GPS data or any plot data, that should be available in the next 2 weeks or so. But I really wanted to come out and pay my respects. Someone who was iconic, played in the NFL in the 50s and 60s, dealt with a lot of the injuries that many of the former players from that time period and that era dealt with, and was at the forefront of activism to try to get justice for the players who played during that time period. So he's definitely an iconic figure, not just for his sporting accolades, but also a lot of the things he did outside of the gridiron as well. So that's kind of also some of the symbolism as to why I really wanted to get out here and pay my respects. So, sometimes when you have a really small cemetery, you can kind of navigate it pretty quickly and find final resting places without too much of a challenge. This one isn't super big, but it's also not super small either. So this is my first time walking through the cemetery. I've driven around it twice before, and I decided, hey, I've been wanting to do some behind the scenes type videos, whereas I take you along kind of like what happens, the good, the bad, the ugliest, some of the bloopers. So I was like, what better way of kind of showcasing a nice intro into those types of videos, then to take and to go live and take you guys in real time into one of the locations of these videos as I'm trying to discover and locate a final resting place. Okay. So how's everyone's night going? Starting to cool off a little bit here in Central Florida. I started out without a jacket and realized very quickly that I was going to need a jacket. So I put one on before I got out of the car. Well, yeah, so this is kind of what we all do. All of us creators, historians, visual storytellers. We all take and we do research. Sometimes the research takes us exactly to where we're trying to go, which are amazing. And you definitely have to say thank you to those who have put the work in to find some locations, like filming locations, historical locations, even graves. The people who go in and find the GPS coordinates and then share those with others. Those people are amazing. I try to, whenever I go somewhere, if it's not already documented, that's what the person's resting at, I like to take and go in and add the location. I always find it strange. Some people are like, well, this is a secret location. I'm thinking, well, somehow you found it. And think of all the trouble you went into trying to find it. Imagine if you could have helped someone else out considerably by just sharing those resources with them. How much better you could have made their adventures. How much less stress you could have put them through. I'm not even fully sure exactly 100% what I'm actually even looking for. I know, as I said, it's Gary Canafel who I'm looking for. I don't know if he already had a headstone. I'm not sure if there was already some plotting set up, if he already took care of all of those resources and it was just the opening and closing that needed to take place. I'm not really sure. And so one of the things, I wanted to touch base on is sometimes, when we go places, we miss things. For example, I've been to some cemeteries before and thought I did my research and found out very quickly that my research was lacking in some areas. Such as, for example, last August, well, now it's been almost 2 Augusts ago, the first August of my channel, I drove out about an hour and a half out to the Florida National Cemetery. And that's where it's a military cemetery. And it's one of the largest, if not the largest cemetery in the state of Florida, where there's about 175,000 people or so that are interred there. It's only a little bit smaller in size than, say, even Arlington. So it's definitely a very large cemetery. And I knew some of the locations I was looking for. So I went in and I went to those locations. I did some videos on some of those famous interments. Went to Blackjack Mulligan's final resting place. Went to Hercules Gonzalez's final resting place. I missed out on going to one of the Harlem Globetrotters final resting places. he was laid to rest in Florida National Cemetery. It was Curly. He was the one who was really short, that was in the Scooby-Doo episodes when they met the Harlem Globetrotters. He's laid to rest in Florida National Cemetery. I didn't get a chance to make it to his final resting place, as well as just recently the lady who was the face of Gerber. She passed away and is laid to rest in Florida National Cemetery. So I need to make a trip back to Florida National Cemetery sooner than later to pay my respects and to, take you guys along with me. It's one of the things I enjoy. Kind of thing that drives me with the channel is, I like to seek out history. Sometimes things are good, sometimes things are bad, sometimes things are ugly. But I believe that all history has a place and deserves to be covered, even if it's not the most positive. Which I noticed recently I've gotten a couple comments, and some of the comments have dove into some of the content that I've covered. And it's one of those things, you're kind of prepared for. If you do certain types of content like I cover on my channel, I know that sometimes I'm going to receive comments back from people who don't necessarily agree with maybe the fact that I've covered that topic, or maybe in the nature that I covered it, or who I covered. And it's always difficult. Covering these topics is already hard enough. A lot of times I will not cover some content. Again, I'm just trying to check to see if I can find this final resting place. But when I take and I try to cover, the content, one of the big ones recently was I did the victim of Eileen Wuornos's grave, one of her victims. And the response, one of the comments I got back was, shame on me for covering this. And I commented back, one of the things was like, the only two people truly know the extent of what exactly happened. And either way, it was tragic, the circumstances, regardless of who did what first. None of us know. Only two people know the information to that. And both of those individuals are deceased. So all I can do is document, go off of what transcripts have determined, what testimony has been given by these individuals, such as Eileen Wuornos testified that she did in fact commit those crimes. So having sworn testimony kind of, makes it hard to go against. But, there definitely was, at first those questions of self-defense, which could very well be true. But unfortunately, none of us know the true answer. So all I can do is try to document and to ensure that these stories are not lost to history. Because again, maybe eventually information will come out that will prove one way or the other with some of these cases. But by us taking and providing context or keeping these conversations alive, then maybe more information can be found. So that's kind of just some of the rationale that I had. Sometimes there's certain videos I just have never covered, and I will never cover on my channel, or I may cover in a certain capacity. For example, there's one subject that I will be most likely covering very soon in collaboration with another amazing creator that I told myself I wouldn't cover based off of the subject matter. And it's taken a lot of thinking and soul searching. And even then, the way that I'm going to cover it is going to be a little bit differently than other people have covered it. In more ways than one. One of the biggest ways is to be the fact that the perspective that we're going to take is going to be a little bit different, as we have a little bit of firsthand connections with individuals who have interacted with the subject matter. So that's going to be a little bit different. But stay tuned for that. Just know that it's definitely going to be in a unique way. But yeah, for those of you who are chiming in, who haven't been on the channel from the beginning, I'm here at a cemetery trying to find the final resting place of Gary Canafell, who was a very famous football player for the Green Bay Packers, a longtime announcer, and major activist, helping to ensure rights of the players, not just when they're active, but also when they're retired, either by their own choices or medically, that they still have rights that are protected. And yeah, I'm here. It's a really nice cemetery, something about the cemeteries that have all the different hills always kind of stick out to me. It gives me feels as if I'm not in Florida. And that's one of the interesting things about where I'm at. So I'm in Clermont, Florida, which, for those of you who've been to Orlando or from Orlando or been in Lake County, you know that part of the Central Florida area is very hilly. So for example, we actually have a hill that's about 10 miles from here that's about 400 feet tall, second tallest place in the state of Florida, tallest which being up at the very top of the state. But yeah, so it takes me back, when I used to go visit family in other states. They, most of the cemeteries, like the cemetery where one of my cousins is laid to rest, as well as my grandparents, two of my aunts, actually two of my cousins, both of my aunts, both of my grandparents, and it's very similar to this one, where it's not super huge in size, but it's definitely very hilly. It has some landscape to it. So, and even though there's some different elevations, it's actually not bad. It's not a bad walk. I'm wondering if maybe he's laid to rest up there. It's the only place I haven't been yet. Things have changed dramatically since 1992. And I haven't been to Pensacola. It's been a while since I've been to Pensacola. But yeah, they've just a little bit further up from here. So this is on the edge of Clermont going into Groveland. And Groveland was on the National Registry recently in relations to population growth, because Groveland increased its population by 4,000%, I believe it was, in the last decade, which was one of the highest percentage increases nationally. So even though the number itself wasn't super high, the percentage increase was massive. But if you've ever been to Clermont, you definitely know that it's very unique. Actually, I'll make a pass down here. And if I go back up towards the front, I should be able to show you some of the elevation that we have here at the cemetery. Because out in the distance, there is a tall tower that's one of the remnants of the citrus industry that used to exist here in Central Florida before the Great Freeze of the late 1980s. And it's called Citrus Tower. You can actually it costs a couple dollars. You can go up the tower to the top, and there's little binoculars that you can look out and see pretty much past Disney. And I could see it when I first got here, so I'm pretty sure I should be able to see it again. But this area used to all be orange groves, and then the Great Freeze happened in the late 80s, destroyed so much of the citrus crop that most of the industry just kind of went away, which is one of the things I thought was crazy. Was about 10 years ago, I went out of state, and I think it was in Tennessee, and I bought orange juice at the grocery store. And the grocery store's prices in Tennessee were significantly lower for orange juice than the prices in Florida, which I was thinking, isn't Florida supposed to be like the orange juice place? Well, apparently not anymore. I think I paid maybe a couple dollars more for orange juice. I'm just now reading your first message, April. I appreciate that. You know, sometimes I try to plan to go live. Other times I kind of just spontaneously do it. Same with some of my videos. I have a notebook that I keep all the different locations that I want to cover, and I'm constantly adding to it. And sometimes things get added to it, or sometimes I find myself just being out and about and get the motivation to jump in the car and go seek out something. Such as today. I was looking at some things on my phone and came across a filming location, which actually I'm going to be posting. It should be live tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And it's only a scene from the film. I'm going to go in and do the rest of the film, but I just thought it was crazy to think that this one place that's kind of obscure is now, you know, that it was in this film. So sometimes, you know, I do that where I make a complete video, or sometimes I chop it up. And today I got the motivations about 3 hours ago that I was going to go out and film that filming location. So I went quickly, found the clip that I wanted to show, went out, filmed what it looks like now, did some context, edited it quickly, and then have it uploading now. So it should be live at 8 a.m. It's a film from 2007 that was filmed here in Central Florida. But yeah, it's been a while since I've been in Pensacola. I think the last time I was in Pensacola, I was traveling to Louisiana. I was going there to, I was doing two different things. One time I was being contracted to do a job in northwest Louisiana, up in Natchitoches. And then the second time, I was doing something else in New Orleans. And we would always stop in Pensacola because there was a Fazoli's, little Italian kitchen. And they closed the one here. So whenever we got a chance to drive there, we knew if we were going to out of the state through Pensacola, we knew that we would pass the Fazoli's leaving the state. Or if we were going north, we knew that once we passed into Georgia, we would also hit a Fazoli's just past the Florida-Georgia line. And I'm actually going to Fazoli's tonight. It's one of the reasons why I'm also up here in Claremont, is that there's a Fazoli's. They opened up here about a year ago. But if you look straight ahead, that is the Citrus Tower. And it looks kind of eerie right now because it's coming down to dusk. It kind of reminds me of the Vanderkit psychiatric facility from the remake of House on Haunted Hill, when it's hanging off the side of the cliff. That's kind of the vibes I get from it sometimes. And especially now with it being at dusk time. Yeah. I'll zoom in a little bit. But yeah, you can go up to the very top of that building and look out. And you can see pretty much about to the other side of Disney. I've heard of Niceville, but I've never actually been. I've been wanting to go to Panama City. There's actually a couple things that I've been wanting to film there. It's one of the crazy things is that I find myself constantly looking outside the state of Florida while still having so many things here that I really want to film. Like, there's a lot of historical things that I have not filmed here. That's really nice. I love St. Augustine as well. It's just so expensive. It's definitely good for a good day trip, but trying to stay at a hotel is so expensive. And we've tried to do it in the past where we've taken and tried to stay there for like a day or two, and before you know, you're spending $1,000 to try to stay in, not even in the old city. Some cases you're staying across the river on the ocean side. But yeah, there's so many things I've been wanting to film here, but I'm actually still am going to be going out. I mentioned it in one of the other videos that I did about a week ago, where in July I'm going to be going back to Washington, D.C. I have a couple filming locations videos that will be coming from Washington, D.C. I have a couple of true crime videos that I'm going to be covering in Washington, D.C. I have a whole bunch of historic videos, and I have a bunch of famous graves, because I've never actually covered any famous graves in Washington, D.C. It's kind of crazy when I think about it, because I actually have some family who's buried just across the river in Maryland, and they're actually in the same cemetery as the late Associate Justice Abe Fortas. He was the attorney at the time who defended Clarence Earl Gideon in the Gideon versus Wainwright case that was here in Florida, where the gentleman was accused of breaking and entering into a pool hall. I believe it was Panama City. And he was thrown in jail for 5 years. He appealed his conviction, and ultimately his Supreme Court case gave rise to ensuring that any person who's arrested, no matter what the severity of the crime is guaranteed rights to counsel, rights to an attorney. And he became an Associate Justice. He attempted to become the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, but Congress denied that nomination. But yeah, he's buried somewhere in the same cemetery as actually my grandparents. And I've been wanting to go there. I've been wanting to go to the Congressional Cemetery. Have never been to Arlington. I saw Arlington. I saw the Arlington House. It used to be President Grant's house when I was there, when I was taking pictures. Actually, I have a picture I took from the backside of the Lincoln Memorial that I would love to be able to take and go and actually document. But some people say it takes an entire day to go through Gettysburg. So I'm trying to figure out logistically. I'm up there have some other obligations, and I'm going to see about trying to add a day, maybe even 2 days to the front end, most likely be the front end, to try to cover as much as possible. That's true. You've been my go-to when I was in Philadelphia. You helped tremendously, and it was crazy. I actually connected with another person once I got back from Philadelphia, and he was like, "Wow, wish I would have met you, a couple weeks beforehand. You could have taken me to some of the locations." He covered the Christina Grimmie case that happened here in Central Florida. She was on The Voice, and she unfortunately was murdered while at the end after performing at the Plaza Live here in Orlando the day before the Pulse nightclub shooting. And I covered the Plaza Live, but I have not covered her final resting place. And apparently when I was in New Jersey, I was less than 20 minutes away from her final resting place, which I kind of knew. I kind of remembered that she was in New Jersey, but I wasn't sure how close. And I didn't have my own transportation when I went to Philadelphia. I was thinking about it, but I kept looking at like logistically of trying to get from the airport across the river, because I was staying in New Jersey, and with the tolls and everything, it just was more than I really wanted to deal with. Hindsight, I probably should have got my own rental car. It definitely would have increased my ability to go to some places in New Jersey. Like, for example, when I did the Walter Whitman house, I only got a chance to take exterior shots when I was leaving. I wanted to stay for the tour, but I had some other things I needed to cover, so I wanted to take and get across the river back into Philadelphia. And so I didn't get a chance to make it into the house, nor did I make it to his final resting place, which is about a mile away, which was really unfortunate. But I don't have a definitive plan on going back to the Philadelphia, New Jersey area soon. The most recent is going to be Washington, D.C. in July, and then I'm going to be looking at Nashville in December, and then maybe Savannah sometime at the beginning of next year. I'm going to be in Boston the end of 2024, Chicago in 25. I may actually, before I go to Washington, D.C., there's a chance that I may actually go out of the country and go to maybe the Bahamas. That's something that's still in working progress, but it could possibly happen. So there's a chance I may be in the Bahamas, which would be the first international filming that I've done for the channel. I've been out of the country to the Caribbean. I've been almost down to Venezuela. So I've been to I think 10 or 12 different islands in the Caribbean. I've never been to Canada yet. I'm hoping that maybe when I go to Boston, I'm going to look at logistically how much time I have. I'm trying to make it up to Salem. I have some locations I want to do in Salem. I want to do the Hocus Pocus locations. Would be my dream. It's my favorite movie of all time. That's why getting a chance to meet most of the main cast at the House of Mouse Expo was amazing. I wanted to get all their autographs, but financially it just wasn't possible. It was going to cost probably $350 to try to get all of their autographs, and that just was not feasible. So I was able to get, I think I ended up getting 3. So, but yeah, I want to do Hocus Pocus. I want to do some things in Salem. I'm hoping to meet up with a couple people when I go to Massachusetts. Do some stuff in Boston. I'm going to see logistically how close I am to Toronto, and if I get a vehicle, which I might get a vehicle, I'm debating. I'm going to see how easy it is to get to Salem without a vehicle. If not, then I'm going to get a vehicle to make the trek up there. And I may see about making my way across the border into Toronto. I need to reach out with a few people. There's a couple people in Canada that I want to film with. One person I have filmed with before, Scott on Tape. I'd love to be able to film in his hometown and have him take me and show me some of the locations. That'd be amazing. So I need to reach out to him as we get closer. We're still 2 years out or so. I actually have not been. It's quite ironic, the fact that I have such a strong history background, and you would think that I've been to all these historic places, and unfortunately there's a lot of places I just haven't been. Mainly the biggest thing is that I actually had a tremendous fear of flying, so I didn't fly for the first time until right before I turned 30. So, and I've been on a couple flights since then. And yeah, it's so that's kind of been a big hindrance is the fact that I just have never been willing to fly. So my ability to go to these other places just didn't happen. So now that I'm willing, even though I don't enjoy it, I'm willing to fly now to get out and get to places. I'm trying to further myself with the channel. I'm trying to further myself in other aspects. So I know that I have to get out of my comfort zone and be more willing to take risks, calculated risks. And it's something that, which is why I'm going out of state. Well, I've been out of state, was out of state twice in 2022. I'm going to be out of the state at least twice this year, maybe even 3 times. I really want to make it to Savannah. I've never been to Savannah. I've been to Georgia plenty of times, but I've never been to Savannah that I know of. So I really want to document some stuff there. I've had some friends who've been there. So it's definitely something that I want to do. But yeah, so another day where I have not found Gary Canafel. So I will come back again. I may come back after the time period to see if maybe some information has been posted, at least like a plot, a section. That can definitely help out tremendously. Even if we don't have a GPS, having the plot area, like knowing is it S, is it V, is it O, is it M, can help out tremendously, especially when you're looking in larger cemeteries. But yeah, so been here about almost 40 minutes. I've definitely enjoyed, having you guys all, here. Had a handful of people popping in throughout, and there's some people driving crazy in the background. Checking the messages. Someone's driving erratically. So, I definitely want to see about trying to do some live videos again soon. I enjoy them because, it gives you a chance to interact with me directly. It gives me a chance for me to interact with you guys directly, to answer your questions, to, share things that aren't as easy, maybe to share through already pre-recorded videos. But definitely know that there's going to be a video posted at 8 a.m. tomorrow. It's already being uploaded currently. So it actually should be uploaded by now. And it's a filming locations video. So for somebody who's following my channel for filming locations, it's a filming locations video, which I haven't done in a while. I have a couple more historical locations videos, and I finally found another one of the final resting places I've been looking for. I knew which cemetery the person was in, but could not find their final resting place. And I was watching something else, and I actually saw someone covering the grave that I'm looking at. So I was able to, pinpoint exactly where it's at. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly where that's at in that cemetery. I've been to that cemetery a handful of times. But yeah, so I definitely have a few things on the horizon. I've been in communications with a couple of other creators, and I'm hoping to do something really cool here really soon. But yeah, it's starting to get a little dark here, and we'll see about trying to get out of this cemetery before it gets too dark that I can't see the roads. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. And as always, continue to look for history and film. Have a great night, everyone.